Harassing any person I talk about is bad. Don't do it. Ever since the early days of the Something Awful threads, the Danganronpa fanbase has gained a moderate yet vocal following. If you've been a gamer or an anime fan online, you've probably had some exposure to the series, whether it's through Let's Plays, memes, or in my case, YouTube commentary channels that use JPEGs of characters from the series as avatars. Don't ask. And the focus of this video is the second one of those. This will be a similar video to the ones I did on Garfield and Mario 64 in the way that I'll be going over several different memes related to a given topic. However, there's one major difference between the video you're watching right now and the two that preceded it. While those two videos focus on a game and an entire media franchise, this video is on a single character. Nagito Komaeda. Also, I don't have a better time to say this, but it's hard to talk about Komaeda as a character without spoiling the twist from the first chapter of Danganronpa 2. I won't spoil anything else, but if you want to go into the series without knowing the twist in question, you should probably leave. In recent years, Nagito Komaeda has essentially become the face of the many weird shitposts that came from the Danganronpa fanbase. Out of all the characters in the franchise, he is the most seemingly ubiquitous. But how exactly did Komaeda get that way?
Hello there, everyone!
If you don't know what Danganronpa is, it's basically the edgy weeaboo version of that one Canadian cartoon they had on Cartoon Network. In Danganronpa 1, you played as this guy called Makoto Nayagi. He was an anime boy in a hoodie, he was the ultimate lucky student, and he was voiced by Megumi Ogata and Bryce Papenbrook. The two most common opinions on Makoto are that he's a wholesome chungus or that he's bland. Flash forward to Danganronpa 2, and the first character the player meets is this Nagito Komaeda guy. He is an anime boy in a hoodie, he is the ultimate lucky student, and he is voiced by Megumi Ogata and Bryce Papenbrook. What a weird coincidence! Throughout the prologue and most of the first chapter, he's a pretty standard character, and if you don't know any better, you'd think he's going to be just like Makoto. Then this happens. From this point on, Komaeda serves as an edgy anti-hero. Sometimes he deliberately messes with your investigations, and other times he helps make sure the killer gets caught. So basically, he's a centrist.
I think Coolsville sucks.
For the longest time, the Danganronpa fanbase was more active on Tumblr than any other site. And there's this thing called character discourse that's popular on Tumblr, and also Twitter when the former website died and had its soul absorbed. From what I can gather, character discourse is arguing over fictional characters but with a fancy name. Seeing as both Danganronpa and character discourse would be on the same site, it is inevitable that there is a lot of Danganronpa character discourse. Also, I should mention that the Danganronpa character discourse I'm talking about is the discourse on Tumblr about Danganronpa characters and not the discourse on Instagram that has nothing to do with Danganronpa but uses PNGs of Danganronpa characters for some reason. And Nagito Komaeda was the subject of plenty of discourse. As we all know, there is no such thing as a morally grey character, and it is physically impossible to like a character while still disagreeing with their actions. As such, Komaeda discourse was split into two groups, one that thought Komaeda was an absolutely perfect human being who did absolutely nothing wrong, and another that hated his guts. So in summary, Komaeda is a morally grey anime character that has white hair and has resulted in tons of online arguments. Wait, why does that sound familiar?
Must you continue to reconquer?
Edelgard, Griffith, Joshu, Kaworu, and even more characters when you take out the white hair requirement. The abundance of these characters resulted in the terms Komaeda character and Komaeda archetype. Something to note is that Komaeda wasn't the first Komaeda character, and the archetype is believed to have started with Ryo Asuka from Devilman, a manga series that had a heavy influence on the shonen genre. However, the Danganronpa fandom was one of the ones that shaped modern fandom culture, so it was many people's first exposure to the archetype, which is why it's called the Komaeda archetype and not the Ryo archetype. Eventually, a Twitter user going by the handle Helltabby would create the Komaeda checklist, a set of criteria that is used to determine whether a fictional character can truly be considered a Komaeda. They would then create a blog post on Tumblr dedicated to explaining the checklist as well as the impact of Komaeda characters. Not touching this one with a 46 billion light-year long pole. Okay, fine, I'll actually talk about this one. Just take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I barely understand any of the stuff even after doing the research. It is impossible to talk about the Danganronpa fandom without discussing the practice of kinning. Kinnies are people who relate to a fictional character. It should be noted that kinnies are completely different from stuff like other kin and fiction kin. The latter groups legitimately believe they are characters on some spiritual/religious level, while the term kinnie is more casual and many people use it as a joke. Being a kinnie is ultimately harmless and can be a source of comfort.
No, that's wrong!
Well, unless, of course, the character you're kinning is a certain someone. Yeah, for whatever reason, Komaeda kinnies have built up a fair amount of infamy within the Danganronpa fanbase. Many horror stories surrounding them have emerged over the years, although it's hard to say how much of these stories are exaggerated. Also, whatever you do, do not look up Komaeda kinnie finger. You know, all this talk about Tumblr and fandoms is making me think of another character. I just can't quite put my finger on Sans Undertale is a character that has had a similar impact to Komaeda, but on a larger scale. Sans was already a ubiquitous character on both Tumblr and the broader internet, but after enough time it had become a meme to randomly say that various characters are connected to Sans in some way. The origin of this trend is very hard to pinpoint, but I'd like to believe that the infamous game theory about how Sans' death had something to do with it. And within this trend, Komaeda would become an especially prevalent character thanks in part to a 2016 edit by Tumblr user Lower Norfair. People started to create similar edits as well as artwork that showed the two characters crossing over. Then some people took the joke even further by portraying the two characters in a romantic relationship. This crossover resulted in a small subreddit as well as an entire wiki, and in late 2018 some Twitter users made an entire week dedicated to fan art of both of the two. Unfortunately, or fortunately depending on who you're asking, both the subreddit and the wiki would be contained within a small bubble, but one video featuring the two characters would extend further beyond the small bubble.
Fingers in his ass, fingers in his ass. Kanye West, he lies. Fingers in his ass, fingers in his ass, fingers in his ass. Kanye West, he likes big fingers in his ass.
I am, of course, talking about the famous Ass-Core video, which features the two characters dancing to a song about how popular hip-hop musician Kanye West likes fingers in his ass. The video actually has quite an interesting history behind it. It started when a mashup YouTuber by the name of Triple Q received a copyright claim because of the use of a Kanye song. Then another mashup YouTuber by the name of Botanic Sage took one of the boss themes from Undertale and added lyrics about how Kanye West likes fingers in his ass, which is a reference to this tweet from his ex-girlfriend. In January of 2018, almost 2 years later, a Tumblr user by the name of Skeletortilla used some Miku Miku dance software to create an animation that featured Sans Undertale and the ultimate lucky student himself dancing to the song. Then in March, a YouTube user by the name of Only Sadness Remains would post the animation to YouTube and get 1.9 million views as of scripting. 1 month later, another Tumblr user by the name of Grappy Bear would create the Fingers in His Ass Sunday trend where users would reblag the video as well as posts referencing it. This would go on for every Sunday until the site's untimely demise in December of 2018. Even 2 years later, this video has left its impact on internet culture. In March of this year, a Twitter account was created in order to make Sundays holy again, and in September, an entire orchestra would perform the Undertale soundtrack live in order to celebrate the game's 5th anniversary. And when the performance reached Asgore's battle theme, the chat exploded with references to a certain song. Komaeda's status as a meme could have easily ended there, but instead, he did the impossible.
My name is Jeff.
Komaeda went beyond just being a meme and had fully ascended to the status of a shitpost. Urban Dictionary defines shitposting as any content whose humor derives from its surreal nature and or its lack of clear context. While shitposts are often mistaken for memes, the two terms do not refer to the same thing. Memes tend to be in easily repeatable formats, while shitposts tend to be less comprehensible. Take, for instance, this video from Twitter voice actor Pattern Screamer.
Hello there, everyone. It's me, Nagito Komaeda on the Nintendo DS.
There is no hidden connection between Nagito Komaeda and the Nintendo DS console. There is no joke. After all these years, Komaeda has gotten to the point where he can somehow be funny without any actual jokes. This video would become fairly popular with countless posts referencing it. The creator would even make follow-ups where Komaeda is now on the 3DS and is also reading the dialogue from a Burger King commercial. But this is just one shitpost out of many. People on the internet realize that if they added Komaeda's name on anything, they could be an epic comedian. He could be on the McDonald's menu, he could be reading a book, he could be bald, he could eat bees. One person even made an entire channel dedicated to Komaeda reviewing stuff. Komaeda had truly become one with the memes and one with the shitposts.
I'm Nagito Komaeda, and trans rights are human rights.
This is usually the part of the video where I would end with some melodramatic speech about how the internet changed things, but instead I thought it would be fitting to end with a quote from the ultimate lucky student himself. Hope, hope, despair, hope, despair. Nagito Komaeda. Well said. Okay, video's over. Like, subscribe, and comment so I get algorithm points. Bye!
I asked people to send me a bunch of memes, and I went down the, Nagito video internet world. I went down that rabbit hole. So I've discovered a few things. Nagito on the Nintendo.
Oh yeah, people want us to ask you about that.
Nintendo DS.